not the least, because now we are going to talk about what is so-called the engine of the Sweden-India business corridor. And that is, as many of you might have heard, and if you have not heard before, you will know of it by the end of the day, Sweden-India Tech Community. My name is CECILIA, OLDNE, and I have been living in India for the last 16 years in Mumbai. I represent Sweden-India Business Council as the Chief India Representative, and I run Sweden-India Tech Community. I'm also an investor and so on, but my heart is in connecting Sweden and India. So, with me today on stage is a panel with active members of the Sweden-India Tech Community, and I would like to welcome up MALIN MENDEL. Applause. And we have SPÅNGBERG, IMAN, POUYA. Yes, please. And NAGU, CHEEMALAMARRI. Welcome on stage, NAGU, as we call you, short and sweet. The surname is complicated even for a Swede that has lived in India for many, many years. But you can read here, of course. We are very excited to have, again, we have MALIN, and to give a few more words about what MALIN does is that she's the India correspondent for the Swedish national television, and she's also a writer for Dagens Industri. She's also an author, and she's been spending the last 18 years in India. Iman is the founder of many companies, a serial entrepreneur who I had the pleasure of meeting in Mumbai about 4 months ago. He started companies such as Nebulr, Nblocks, Voxo, and Northwhistle. Wipro, many of you would know by now, and I am having a mic and a head mic at the same time. I will take this away. And Wipro is a company, of course, it's an Indian company, and they are in 66 countries around the world with 250,000 employees. And NAGU, he heads up the cluster, the business cluster, so to speak, for Wipro Nordics. SPÅNGBERG is the CEO of Levels, and Levels is a very exciting company that is a venture studio based out of Sweden, but he will also be talking a little bit more about what now Levels are doing in India.
Thank you.
But I would first like to say a few more things about Sweden-India Tech Community and what it is. It's actually a collaborative, inclusive engine, so to speak. We have everything from startups, scale-ups, grown-ups, academia, media, investors, incubators, government, and politicians. And we work together to connect Sweden and India with 170 people today. Half is Swedish, half is Indian, about the same men, women, and it's literally the red carpet to India and the red carpet, vice versa, to Sweden. And I'm very happy to see so many part of Sweden-India Tech Community in the audience here today, on site and online. So, MALIN, first, I would like to give the word to you, because you have spent 18 years in India, and you have seen how it's been transforming since 2005 to today, 2023. What has been your journey? Give us some lights on that.
Okay. Nice to be here. Thank you for coming, everybody. And thank you, Cecilia. Well, the first time I landed at Mumbai airport, it was a much smaller building. It was low ceiling. It was a little bit dark. And outside of the airport were taxis from the 1960s, waiting. And today, as you might know, it's completely different. It's huge airport, it's very designed airport, and it's not only Mumbai. I mean, I'm traveling around India constantly, and I think we have now more than 220 airports, and most of them are new or renovated. And I mean, they look actually so much better than Arlanda, I must say. So, and India is also now the 7th largest aviation market. And in the next couple of years, the flights to India and from India will double. So this is so obvious that the journey that has been happening in India and that is happening right now is tremendous in so many ways. And I constantly just watch this in front of my eyes as a reporter. Many of my stories focus on this development taking place. And the interest is also so much more in Sweden towards India today. When I first came 18 years ago, I was supposed to deliver 1 story per month from India. That was what they could handle in the news programs, they thought. And then after maybe 10, 15 years, it was 1 story a week. Now I feel when I'm there, I could do 1 story per day. We should actually be a full team, I think, in India now. Not only me, I wish more Swedish media were there to cover India, but also to explain what is happening between Sweden and India, because this is like a perfect match. And there is so many stories to produce about this, and I hope I will be back with the full team and do it.
We're looking forward to having you back, and we have such fond memories, Malin and myself, from being in different parts of India, everything from Goa to Nasik to Mumbai to Delhi to Bangalore, Hyderabad, and I cannot wait to travel more with you in India. But what I do look forward to also is to travel with 2 very new friends, but that's Per and Iman, because they're part of the Sweden-India Innovation Bridge. So on the 20th to the 24th, we will be going to India together. But on the note of being in India, I did meet then Iman, and that was about 4 months ago at Soho House in Mumbai, and he was there for the first time. And what I found so encouraging was that Iman came to India for the first time, and he just made friends with everyone. And he had, came back to Sweden with, this amount of visiting cards, this amount of opportunities, and just, I think even better, Iman, tell us about your first impression of India.
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me? Great. My agenda was very simple. A lot of the things I do is kind of similar to Per. Innovation is our business idea, and what we do is trying to find industry-leading innovations, and for it to be industry-leading, it has to be bigger than what we can do in Sweden, all right? So right now, since we started 2 years ago, we have clients in 11 countries, mostly European. So we had a bit of a feeling what it takes to go from 0 to 1 in one market. If it's easy, if you can get market feedback fast, or if it's even more difficult in Sweden. We tried out all the European countries. We knew what we had here, but we had a product that was geared towards developers. And as you know, the developer demand is increasing. And as we satisfy that demand, the demand is increasing even more. So what we try to do is to provide better tools so that all of you can be doing the stuff that developers do. So we actually evaluated the US, UK, other big markets in Germany, and also said we need to check out one more continent before we decide where we want to focus our energies on. So that's why we came to India. And I had no impression at all. It was actually just a test. We had booked like 5, 7 meetings ourselves there to see if we can find a good target group there. And as soon as I landed, CECILIA pretty much quadrupled that amount of meetings for me. So you could say that our pre-market evaluation went pretty fast. I was very positively impressed compared to a lot of the other European countries. It went actually much faster to evaluate things. You can actually say that sales dynamic, we do a lot of B2B sales. You could actually get a more transparent opinion of your product directly there. So you could, change it, pivot very fast, understand the value you can provide to the target groups there, and decide is that the market that we want to go to. And simple answer is now we're making a directed initiative towards India as one of our first big markets.
Well, woo! Yeah, that deserves an applause. We're very excited to have you in, and we can't wait for you to come back in November. But there's, of course, the discussion of then being Swedish and being a Swedish company going to India. But I think one very important note is also that we had such great companies, Indian companies in Sweden. We actually have about 60,000 Indians who lives in Sweden. And one of the reasons to that, I would say, is because of one particular company. And that happens to be Wipro. And Wipro Nordics has a head. And that is very much NAGU, CHEEMALAMARRI. And Wipro Nordics, of course, you do so much. You are, well, Wipro as a company has an Indian heritage, but they are in 66 countries today. I think I mentioned also 250,000 employees across the world. But coming then from India and being a global company, NAGU, tell us more about what it is that you do with Wipro, and in particular, I'm very interested to hear about the Wipro Ventures, and that is something also that I know that would be very interesting also for Per and Levels to hear more about. So give us some more words about Wipro Ventures and yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Being a leading technology services and consultancy company, and also a system integrator of choice globally, we do a lot of investments in the technology, like AI. We have AI 360 initiatives where we invest more than $1 billion. So it's and also on the full stride cloud for the cloud transformation initiatives. And this is all our internal investments for building ecosystem of partnerships and building training and then getting the right talent, being able to serve our customers with the right solutions. But being a global scale player, we cannot bring all the innovation ourselves. We depend significantly on partnerships, where we build local partnerships both in Sweden and also across the globe. In addition, we also, like everybody does, we get into mergers and acquisitions. We have done a few, to name a leading design services company called DesignIt, Lean Swift, and also ITI. We have a few local employees and customers. They all provide us with the required competencies as well as local presence. But that is not it is not enough to bring the innovative solutions to our customers. That's where the venture fund that you talked about comes into play.
Right.
So out of our three-pronged strategy, our internal investments, mergers and acquisitions, local partnerships, but then the last point here is about the venture fund. So we have a venture fund, which is about $200 million fund. We invest in entry-level and mid-stage technology software companies. And currently we have about 25-30 active companies part of our portfolio.
How many Swedish?
Not yet.
No.
I'm coming to that.
This is very important.
Yes, that's the important one.
Yes.
Indeed.
So you have we have IMAN next to you.
And we are quite excited about Swedish industry, and we are growing faster than the market here and gaining market share. We are investing significantly in Sweden. Currently, our ventures team is also evaluating a few possibilities here in Sweden.
Great.
Which is good to know, and good to have you both here on stage. So we have across AI, robotics, security, supply chain, various industries. We have about 25 to 30 companies part of that portfolio. Looking forward to having more.
Yes, and we are looking forward because we are so happy to have Wipro doing so much with Sweden in so many ways. But we're looking forward to also see more from the fund and the ventures being involved and doing investments in Sweden. And of course, there are also a lot of other interesting projects that you're going to speak about a little bit later. I'm going to go back to my little paper that I made before I came on stage. and I will introduce properly here Per Spångberg of Levels, because what I actually just outside we started talking and I just saw one thing that I love to do is to connect people and make, you know, opportunities. And I can see already here there are some great possible opportunities for collaborations in the future. So a company and a person that I was connected with recently is Per of Levels. And Levels is a venture studio that creates, builds and invests in brilliant digital businesses. With 14 active ventures at the moment, Levels has built a strong portfolio with a broad variation of companies within fintech, femtech, health tech, and more. So that's my short little introduction here, Per, about you. We met because someone came to me saying, I have a friend, he has started a company, which you will have to tell us more about Venture Studio, what it is. But it says he's just doing something very exciting with India. I cannot tell you more about it, but you have to meet him. So I went to meet him, and he's indeed doing something very exciting with India. And I don't think I'm allowed still to say much more, but I would like you, Per, to tell us more about Levels a little bit also, and what is a venture studio? And before we will then tell the audience a little bit more about the new exciting work with India.
Thank you, Cecilia, and hello everyone, really nice to be here. Yes, I'm Per. I have a few colleagues also here at the back. I have a background, you can say, with a various number of industries. But I will say always been really driven by curiosity and innovation and the new possibilities that new technologies bring. And I listen to Ola also. I used to work at Investor, the Wallenberg holding company, as a financial analyst and then as head of investor relations. And being at Investor and also with my previous interests, you see that a lot of interesting technology comes out of Sweden. And I mean, we built a lot of good things in this country on the export of technology and technological ideas since more than 100 years. And that's really a fascinating history to start from. And then you've seen some of these companies. Let's say, for example, we had Epiroc here and Atlas Copco as a story. It's taken more than 100 years, lots of physical products, and you would go to some of the large markets like out in Europe and in the US and so on. And then, of course, some companies have been present in places like India for a long time. Then when I started to think about founding Levels and what a venture studio actually is, I really saw the opportunity when the great innovation organization Apple created the iPhone about 15 years ago. You could really see that this is a device that will bring a lot of knowledge, a lot of innovation, a lot of democratization actually into the hands of a lot of people all over the world. And since then, yeah, we can just see what has happened. So I tried to formulate some ideas and then got Linus, who is here, and another person called Henrik, to join me to found Levels with the idea of, like you said, Cecilia, we create digital products and services and we invest in digital ventures. So the whole thing with the venture studio is we do share risk and upside. We never call ourselves a consultancy because we do not want to end up selling ours. That is an old business model, so we have also tried to innovate with our own business model. Be a partner to the people we work with, whether that's a small venture or a scale-up or a larger organization. So in whatever ways we can, we like to partner up and share risk and share upside. So just a few words on how we thought and how we think about India. One idea I brought into Levels from the start is because I had the opportunity to work a couple of years with Karolinska Institutet, and there was a great person. Many of you might have heard of him or listened to him or met him, Hans Rosling, who had very interesting perspectives on the world. And I was already curious on Africa. And Africa is for sure a very interesting sort of emerging continent with a lot of different markets, but a lot of different opportunities. So I kind of was curious to bring an idea into levels that we could start exporting, like Atlas Copco and the others have done for 100 years, but now with digital only. You know, no hardware involved, no big investments into big logistical chains or anything, because when some people speak about digital, they also talk about e-commerce or big logistical systems that might have a you know, interface which is digital, but the whole system is very physical. So we concentrate on digital only. So what we did as a basic idea that has been with us ever since and is now evolving is a podcasting platform based out of Nairobi in Kenya. So we really wanted to be part from the start of levels in some emerging markets. Then we also started to look at India at the same time. But this partnership in Africa has now grown, so we are working with more than 100 radio stations to bring podcasting technology. And the fascinating thing is, with emerging markets, sometimes they move much faster than yourselves. So being a former financial analyst, I like to look at numbers, and the way India has climbed in terms of economic development, technological development, you could do any kind of numbering, statistics, whatever, is so fascinating. And sometimes, because we've now been exploring opportunities in India, which I can talk more about in a little while, some people would ask me the stupid question, oh, will you outsource something to India? Absolutely not. We will be happy if we could, you know, join a global team that is working out of many countries and many continents. And the fact is that some innovations that we have in Sweden should definitely be brought to the Indian market that is huge and growing. And Sweden is like a small test laboratory where you can build things and then bring them into really interesting markets, like we've done with technology for more than 100 years. But now to do it in this context is really, really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. That's good. I mean, Venture Studio was something fairly new for me, but the way that you explain it and the way that you work, I think, is fascinating. And also looking forward to see more of that work in India and what you do in Africa. I see all these things that you've done in so many other emerging countries can very much happen also in India. And I know they will. But on that note, when we talk about what is happening in India and why, and who best to give us some more words on that than Malin. Yeah, that's you. So Malin, what I wanted to ask was in general, you know, as a journalist and having been there for so many years, why do you think, or why is in India, according to you, so interesting right now?
Well, India has been very promising since I first came there many years ago, but now I feel it's really taking off. And there are, of course, many reasons for this. I mean, the current government has made so many reforms doing this possible, and many other things. I mean, global geopolitical things happening. But what I feel when I'm out meeting people is that since India has the largest young population on earth, half of the population are under 25, I think. And this is something very visible in India, and you also get that energy from people, because it's like when I meet like my children, they are 15, 20. They are like, okay, they don't know what they want to do with their life, and their friends are same, and they're like, no, not study math, not do this, not do that. Maybe being a hip-hop artist or something. But when I meet young people in India, it's like, I will get the best education. I will be even better with my English. I will grow, I will do this, I feel so much energy from this young population. And I think that is really going to make a difference in the future.
No, I feel you. I mean, of course, I live there, and that's like that energy that you feel from the youth and from India in general is something when you go out on the streets in India. It's just that, you know, the jugaad, the way of just making things happen, and there's of course a lot of competition, but there is just that spark that I encourage all of you to come to India and feel, because it's different from many other parts of the world, for sure. I also know that IMAN, you also felt that, and you really gelled with India. But I also feel, you know, why do you see this? And, you know, what do you also look forward to, I would say, and why in India?
Absolutely. So I was actually in the UK last week, and they speak of Europe as the old world, and India and Southeast Asia as the new world. And when you ask them why, it's because everything here, people need to transition towards something better. Over there, it's like a blank slate, and they are just leveling up directly. And you can hear it in the mentality, like in every direct potential client contact I had, or investor contact, or contacts like you mentioned, like you're just ambitious people, they're very adaptable. It moves so fast there, so when you have something that might benefit them and speed up something, people are listening. If you got something of value, they will try it out. Here they need to evaluate, figure out things, get a couple of other people to sign it so they're not only part of the mistake. They just try it out. And if it fails fast and it costs zero. So from my point of view, just evaluating a market went so much faster. But it's also really, really nice to see all the ambition. You get fired up when you're there. So the speed I'm used to working at, I feel it more there than back at home. So that makes me really happy. And you could feel it everywhere. Even if we were just sitting in an informal meeting that CECILIA brought me to, or somebody that referred me to something, it could, some of the meetings could go be like, okay, this is not for us, but I know 4 other people that likes it. So they could refer us very fast. So, that's kind of a bit of the concrete things that I felt when I was there. And that's actually in relation to not only Sweden, but a lot of the different European markets that I've been working and expanding products to.
Yes, remember where you heard it. And if you missed out, then blame yourself. But we're all going to India.
One might think so, because we, like you said, you can have a digital interface, and you get leads from, for example, Italy. And when you respond in English, you can see that there is a friction, not because they dislike it, but they're not used to English. In India, that barrier doesn't exist. So one might think about the proximity, and we usually think about getting established in Sweden, and then in Norway, and then in Finland, and in Denmark. It's as much of a hassle to expand to a new country, whether it's close to you or far away from you. So you gotta, try out where you can find, your target group the best. And the bigger the market and the less friction, the faster you can expand.
Can I add something?
I'd love for you to add something, Malin.
Well, I just also wanted to add that the fact that India is so diverse, with so many different languages, cultures, religions, everything, also I feel the people of India, they are already global in mind. So it's nothing strange to shift from Hindi to Marathi to English to Bengali to, just in the same sentence. Because most of my friends at least, they are very flexible. And I think now when the world is getting so globalized, it's a joy to just be there and just try to keep up with this. Mm.
Yeah, it's kind of a, I've heard so many people speaking before about, now, the time has come for India, and you can really feel it. Finally, people are like, I've been coming here for years, coming back to Sweden, right? And people, okay, India, a little bit interesting here and there, might have come. Now it's like, I can't even, explain how much interest that there is in India, but yeah, it's a proud moment, because this is definitely the decade for India. And on that note, being an Indian heritage company, Wipro, you already done so much, of course, in Sweden. But I would still like to understand a little bit better how Wipro is working with Sweden, and also how you, I wouldn't question how you bring value to the table. When we spoke about it earlier, it was more about also you explaining a little bit more as an Indian company coming to Sweden. What is it that you do, and how would you like to work even more with Sweden, so that we all know, should we want to get engaged with Wipro? And I would say it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. In terms of value, if you take the previous example of the venture fund and the portfolio of startups, from the startups perspective, what we bring as a value is the access to the large global customer base that we have. And while the startups are innovating technologically, what we bring is through our long-term relationships and insights of the customer needs, the market intelligence and the enterprise needs, and bringing that visibility to them is another significant value. We have global innovation centers. We have these incubation centers where we take their solutions and build specific use cases that are relevant for our customers. It is kind of a co-investing and partnership through which we bring that value. This also accelerates the adoption of the new technologies that the startups are bringing. And when you look at the customers, I know I have been talking to several Swedish and customers in the Nordics here. What they want are not just the technology solutions, but the solutions that are well thought out and that solve their business problems, right? So that is where we bring the value from the customer perspective as well, being the orchestrator of these solutions and understanding their business needs, looking at how this technology and the business problems can be bridged, bringing that glue as an orchestrator of choice is what the real value that we bring in as a system integrator.
Super. And this was not on my paper, but I just recall, because one thing that we work very closely with KTH also as a partner, we have KTH very much in the audience, is with academia. Do you work, Wipro, anything with the academia in Sweden? There's so many Indian talents and coming here for different reasons, but do you work anything particular with academia?
Yeah, absolutely. Globally, that is another, like you talked about the young talent and another, in India, we align with a lot of the premier universities, not only in India, but globally across the world. We tie up with the local universities. And for example, in Sweden, last week we had a few of the KTH students who have joined us as part of our consulting organization. So it's part of our overall ecosystem of talent building, and also bringing in the new technology and the new mindset, young people with mindset and local talent especially.
Very important. Good. Sorry for putting that question.
No problem.
But I was sure you would have a good answer. Great. So thank you so much for that, Nagu. And talking about collaborations between Sweden and India, everything from the startups, the scale-ups, to the grown-ups, to the government and the academia, so to speak. But one company, of course, that we very much have here on stage today is Levels and Per. And I know that we cannot say everything about your exciting new venture with India, but I know we can say a few things. And I'm sure people like Malin, being a journalist, would be very happy to hear about this new initiative that is something that I got to know about very, very recently. But yes, you are not only talking about India and that you want to do things in India, you have gone all in with India. And tell us more about that, Per.
Thank you, Cecilia. Now we just go a little bit back. I can only echo what the other speakers on the panel say. I mean, if you have studied India for a long time, it's really fascinating with the investment in knowledge. I mean, also in the collaboration between different parts of India, the diverse culture that you have, and if you also look at the heritage, from my perspective. I practiced yoga for more than half of my life, and it's really, there's always the kind of spiritual element also, which is really nice. And if you've grown up in Sweden and done a lot of business internationally, you're usually very sort of close to the Anglo-Saxon practices of doing business. Sometimes they are a little bit aggressive. We have to thank the US for a lot, and a lot of interesting stuff comes from Silicon Valley, for example. But it's always a little bit aggressive cowboy mentality, you can say. So if you want to build a modern organization built on values, whether it's here in Sweden, where it's anywhere, I think India and the whole diverse society that you have in India, and also always having that little spiritual element into what you do, I think it's really important. So when we started to look into the world, because also, no, it's not logical to expand to Norway as a digitally based business. You would look at interesting markets. And of course, you would look at a market where you could both export some innovations into that market, but you could also make use of the knowledge that is in that market and bring it here. So we started to, about 2 years ago, to really look for international expansion opportunities to strengthen our capabilities to deliver innovation on a global context and into the world, more than just this sort of test case that we're doing in Africa that is growing really, really well. But then we looked around into the world, and I think it's quite clear that you very quickly land upon alternatives in India. And then we were lucky enough that we were contacted by a company looking a little bit like us, having experience of investing in digitally based and tech-based ventures, and also with a culture which is really similar, based on values, based on knowledge, and that has been around for quite some time, since I would say the big investment that India started to do in tech and knowledge in the 90s. And the experience that has been built up in this organization is extremely impressive. So since about a year, we have entertained discussion with a potential partner, and now we are a very few small steps away from actually finalizing this partnership that we're so excited about, and it means a whole new future for us. It means that we team up with an organization with a global presence, and we team up with an organization that has more experience and more knowledge than we have. And we're really, in a very humble way, looking forward to learn from them. But I think they are also interested, because where I started, Sweden is really a place of innovation, the whole topic of what we're discussing here right now. So for them to have sort of feet on the ground here that could pick up the startups from our ecosystem in a way that might be a little bit more difficult if you come. I admire all the, but Wipro is a huge organization. For this organization that's a little bit smaller, it might be tricky to have that local flavor. So I think we combine each other's strength and knowledges, and also curiosity and values in both exploring, new opportunities, new cultures, new ways to collaborate, and not least innovation. So within a not so distant future, we hope to say more about this partnership and what it will bring to us and the possibilities between Sweden and India. So we're really excited about that.
So am I, so am I. I know a little bit more than you do, so I'm looking forward to share this with the world. But it's exciting, and what you shared in terms of what you already done with this particular company in this particular city is particularly interesting. So on that note, Malin, would you jump in on that?
Speaking of yoga and this Anglo-Saxon way of doing business, I just realized that what India also taught me is that you can do new things with old knowledge. And in today's world, we have great problems with health, for example. It's bad health is the biggest killer of everything. And also climate crisis is maybe the biggest challenge we have. And being in India for such a long time, I feel that the old wisdom of yoga and Ayurveda regarding health and climate crisis is knowledge that not is only ancient, but that India now currently is bringing forward to the world in their climate, what you call it, climate solution package is life that is using this knowledge. Because, I mean, yoga is not only about inner peace, it's also about peace with your surroundings and your environment. And I mean, only by eating vegetarian food, if we all adopted the Indian lifestyle doing that, it would make a big difference. And so this is also something I feel we can learn from India.
And if you want to learn more about that also, I'm not here to promote anyone in particular, but I like to promote people. And Malin is the author of many amazing books about Indian food and also Indian yoga. So you can read about that in Malin's books. Per?
Yeah, can I say something which I think is really interesting, and on the perspective of innovation as such? And you were saying, Iman, you were in the UK last week and speak about the old world and the new world. When I was a fresh student out of Stockholm School of Economics, now 30 years ago, I started working at consultancy in London, and then as a young sort of analyst associate in that firm. There was no internet, there was no nothing, so you had to collect a lot of data and make a lot of market research and stuff. And then you learned, and this is of course the typical Anglo-Saxon and sort of British view of the world at that time, and maybe even more so previously, that we made a number of markets. There was the UK, of course, coming first, there was the US, etc. Then at the end of every graph, there was ROW. Rest of world, which is such a strange, and in there was India, China, a lot of really interesting markets. And if you then have taken a look at GDP numbers, where India has moved over the last 20, 30 years, and it's just a question of a year or so, and it will be the third economy of the world. This is really, really interesting, and I think everyone in this part of the world needs to realize that we are definitely, as they say, the old world, and we should be really happy and learn everything from the ancient things there are to learn, but also the new innovations. So I'm really excited to be in a position where I, from this part of the world, can join into this, this journey. So I'm very humble for that kind of view, that you've seen over your career and lifetime.
Yeah, and I think so much we can learn from India, and India is now where India is, but there is also so much we can do together. And there was one, talking about the ancient, but talking about the future. There is also the topic of AI, of course. And Iman, you had some interesting comment on Sweden and India and the importance of collaboration also. So maybe some comments on that, Iman, also thinking about the future of collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, all of you had a touch of AI. For some reason, the last years probably, so you know what it's all about. The interesting thing now is, what can we do with it? What can we leverage it with? And Sweden is a small country. It's like 10 million people, and we're good at innovation, but the largest concentration of talent doesn't exist here. It exists in the rest of the world, ROW. But we can't muscle up, even like we have AI Sweden that has had huge funding and had great success and done stuff that OpenAI hasn't been able to do. As a foundation, it's still very difficult for us to, build the type of technology that you can see in the rest of the world. And a lot of that technology exists over there in India. But what they don't have is the data in Europe. And that's what you can top it up with. You can build fantastic businesses with the data we have in Sweden or in Europe. So bringing over that technology and that talent and the knowledge here in Europe, we can, build fantastic businesses, local. And that benefits both the Indian businesses that wants to establish themselves here. They can't access that data because of GDPR reasons. but we as a business in Sweden and Europe can enable that.
Good closing remarks on that. And on that note, we're talking about Sweden-India tech community and Sweden and India and the importance of collaborations. And you have proven that collaborations is something that is possible, will continue being possible, and we are here to enable that. I would like to give a round of applause to this fantastic panel, and thank you so much for being here with me on stage today.